Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Let's hear your Innawoods stories. Post creepypastas. I think the woods hold some of the scariest stories I've ever heard around here. I have a few experiences. This one's not really paranormal, but made me nope my camping trip short. Growing up in southeastern Kentucky, Appalachian Mountains. Not the tallest mountains in the world, but very deep and dark. Native Americans named these mountains Dark and Bloody Ground. Camping one weekend by myself as usual. Black bears are really the only predator to worry about. They're not really aggressive, but I bring bear spray just in case. Hiking my usual spot. Notice a set of footprints a few feet up. Go to examine them. Grew up here all my life. Never seen a set of prints like this. Pull out a footprint guide. Took a while, but finally found a match. Mountain lion. Heard a few stories about mountain lions being in our woods, but the state refuses to acknowledge them since there are only a few, and since it would demote tourism in the area because of fear. 99% positive it matches the mountain lion track, but dismiss it as a messed up bobcat track and carry on. Hike about another mile or so. Constant feeling of being watched. Think I'm just being paranoid. Starting to get dark. Notice another print up ahead. Matches a mountain lion yet again. Tell myself there's a mountain lion in these woods. Decide to track it. If I bring in a body, then the Kentucky Wildlife Department can't deny the shit any longer. Following for about 30 minutes to an hour. Footprints did a fishhook and lead back almost to where I found the first one. It has been following me. A little spooked, but it's almost 9 p.m. and too late to go back to my truck. Set up a tent, start a fire. Go into the tent to get a can of soup. Pitch black by now. While I'm in the tent, I hear the sound of a baby crying. No worries, not an actual baby. This is actually the sound a mountain lion makes. Grab my Colt 45 and peek outside the tent. Just beyond the fire, see a pair of glowing eyes and a big-ass shadow looking right at me. Decide not to get out of the tent just yet. 30 minutes goes by. Peek outside the tent again. Still in the same spot looking at me. Thinking about shooting my prize. Decide it's best to try and spook it, not anger it. Fire a warning shot up right above it. Mountain lion jumps right out in front of the fire in plain view. Huge fucker, the legends are true. Fire again just to scare it away. It takes off running up the woods. I must have spooked it. Go outside the tent and can tell it's definitely gone. Cook my soup, go back to my tent and try to sleep. Whole night I hear mountain lion screeches within 100 yards of my tent and have the constant feeling of being watched. Daylight comes. Decide to cut the camping trip short and nope out of there. Couple of days later, I called the Kentucky Wildlife Department. Tell them my story. Tell them I clearly saw a mountain lion. I'm sorry, but that's not possible. There are no mountain lions in the Appalachian Mountains. I saw the fucker with my own eyes. Were you drinking or under the influence? Hang up. The Kentucky Department of Wildlife is truly evil. Let's hear your stories /x/ or post some creepypasta about Innawoods.
Got a story. It's nothing special, but was a bit spooky. Hang around with friends one day. We were out in this park just fucking about, and our other friend who was with us, they decided it's suddenly a great idea to go into the wooded area near the park. It was dark at this point. Me being nyctophobic didn't want to go in because of dark and spooky monsters. Anyway, we're in there. One friend is taking pictures. The other is being an ass, seeing how he can scare me. Each time a camera friend takes a photo, the scenery is burned into my eyes. Walking around for about 20 minutes when the camera friend goes, "Guys, stop, there's a denim jacket on a tree." Then friend says, "Run?" I run. Glad to be out of that place. They decide to go back and get it because LOL sounds fun. I say, fuck that, and stay where I am. They come back running with the jacket. We checked the jacket and it had been torn as if someone had been attacked. Inside, we found an empty baggie and £1.20 in change. I checked the internet for missing people or some shit like that, and nothing showed up. Probably just a druggie hiding a stash, right?
I've got a story that's kind of Innawoods. It's a true story, my friend told me. I've got it all typed up on my laptop, but I'm on my phone right now. I'll post it when I get home from class. All right, here we go. It has been a while since I heard it, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Some backstory. My high school town was pretty small. My graduating class had around 200 people in it, I think. It is also kind of in the middle of nowhere. There is really only one main road going through the center. All the other roads are back roads going through the woods. I will be retelling the story from a first-person perspective because I think it will be easier and sound less awkward if I don't have to keep saying, he did this and he did that. I'm going to do my best to tell it to you exactly the way he said it happened. Here we go. It was pretty fucked up and I don't even know how else to describe it. Just thinking about what could have happened terrifies me. It was January, junior year, and I was dating Kayla, not real name. We wanted to fool around, but we didn't have anywhere to do it. So we decided to find a random road where we could park my car. We had done it a couple of times before without any incidents. So at like 2 in the morning, we drove all the way down Adobe, the road by the gas station. We got to the end, and there was a horse trail branching off into the woods. It was pretty wide, so we decided to drive to the end of the horse trail. When we got to the end, I turned the car around so that the woods were to our back and the road was in front. This way I could see if another car was coming down the trail. So if you know Kayla at all, she is pretty crazy. We were taking a break, cuddling in my back seat when things started to get weird. There was a loud noise coming from the woods. It kind of sounded like screaming. I'm pretty sure it was an animal dying. It definitely wasn't human. So that kind of put me on edge, but I wasn't really that concerned. 10 minutes later, we hear more screaming. This time, though, it sounded more human to me. Like I was pretty confident that a person was screaming out there. And it went on for probably a minute. I'm freaking out now, and she was trying to convince me everything was fine. The screaming had stopped, though, so I slowly settled back in. About 20 minutes later, though, we heard a very distinct voice yelling in the woods. "Help! Help me!" It was a male voice, and it sounded like it was maybe 50 meters. Now I'm freaking out, and even Kayla was starting to get scared. She wanted to go and see if someone was hurt, but I told her, hell no, we are staying in the car. So we waited out, and 10 minutes later we hear it again. "Help! Please help me!" Really loud this time and closer, probably 30 meters from the car now. We both went silent. All the windows were fogged up so we couldn't even see outside. Finally, logic triumphs, and I start to get ready to get the hell out of there. I start putting on my pants and looking for my keys. I had climbed into the front seat when a pickup truck came from somewhere off the path about 100 meters in front of us. The truck pulled over to the side and parked. A guy gets out and starts shining a red flashlight around the road and then into the woods. I'm frozen in fear, and Kayla is grabbing my arm and telling me not to leave until this guy does. He eventually starts wandering closer to the edge of the road near the woods. I start to breathe a little easier and continue to look for my keys. Kayla started to say she found the key, but before she could, right outside my car, we heard more yelling. "Help! Help me! Please!" It's not even 5 meters away now. Kayla slams the keys into my hand, and I peel out as fast as possible, probably fucking my car up. I'm doing probably 70 down this shitty path. We start approaching the truck, and I see the guy with the red light turn around. I just floor it past him. I drove Kayla straight home, and I remember telling her, "I don't care what the consequences are with your parents, you are going home right now. We might have just seen something terrible." I went home, told my mom my stomach hurt, and went to sleep. The next morning I was going bowling with a friend, and I told him the story. He said he wanted to go back to where it happened to see if there were footprints because he didn't believe me. There was a lot of snow on the ground, but it hadn't snowed that night, so there should be clear footprints. We drove back out there, and sure enough, there were footprints. And these prints told a story. My friend wanted to be a cop, so he considered himself an expert on evidence. I don't know if he actually does know what he's talking about, but a lot of what he was saying made sense logically. Anyway, we went back. First, we checked out where it appeared the truck had stopped. The night before, I had thought the truck had come out of the woods and onto the path, but it was clear now that it had come down the road just like we had. You could see tire tracks in the snow where it had pulled over. You could also see the footprints where the red light guy got out. We followed the prints into the woods. They went only 15 or 20 meters back. They led to a huge pile of deer bones. And when I say huge, they were at least 20 different deer skulls. The returning footprints just led back to the truck, so we decided to check out the area where Kayla and I were. This is where things got really interesting. The first thing we noticed when we pulled up was the place where I had sped off. You could tell I was hauling ass. There were a lot of footprints around the car. It must have been a common place for people to park. So we went into the woods behind where I was parked and towards the direction the screams for help had come from. We eventually found some footprints, and there were no other ones in the area. They looked fresh and big. Size 12, my friend guessed. So we followed them. They went in the direction of where my car had been parked. What was weird was the way they got closer. The footprints would zigzag in the general direction of my car. But once they got close enough to be in viewing distance of my car, the prints would stop every so often. You could tell the maker of the prints had stopped and stayed in these spots for a while. My friend pointed out that the prints at these spots were more defined, and that the snow had melted more, indicating that he had waited at these spots. And at all of these spots, the prints were facing my car. The prints continued to get closer to my car, stopping every so often. They get about 10 meters from my car before they stop for the last time. This time, though, you can tell that he wasn't standing. He was kneeling. There was a clear, defined print of someone's knee. After that, the footprints start to get really spread out. It looked like he started sprinting after my car when I sped off. Well, that's it. What did you think? It creeped the shit out of me the first time I heard it. If you have any questions, ask. I may have left something out by accident.
My dad grew up in East Tennessee and took me up there as a kid to see my roots or whatever. His father had died when my dad was about 3. My grandmother got the land, but my grandfather's family didn't like that, so they burned everything down one night and damn near killed my dad and grandmother. So my dad takes me to the land where this happened. It's way back in the foothills, totally isolated. We leave the car and head to where the house had been. Only when we get there is a house there. No biggie, right? It was almost 50 years ago. Well, Dad starts freaking out a bit and says it's his house. He remembered the fence and everything. I think bullshit, he was about 5 at the time it burned. So we decided to go knock and see. House is clearly empty and not even a path in the grass leading to it. No answer to our knocking. He goes around back and I try the door. It opens. I call inside, but it's completely empty. All of a sudden I smell smoke and feel heat blast me in the face, and that is literally it. My dad came back, I mentioned the smell and realized it was gone. We took pictures, that didn't develop, and left. I've wanted to go back, but he refuses to tell me how.
All right, here's my one story. Grew up in rural northern Wisconsin. Friend tells me about a secluded swamp, rumored to be where the mafia used to bury dead bodies. Nobody really goes to this swamp, not even locals. 1:30 a.m. Decide we want to go explore this swamp. Drive about 30 minutes of completely dead winding roads. He directs me through completely random roads that I haven't seen before. I drove down a paved dead-end road. I shine my flashlight down the entrance of the trail. Just a narrow trail cutting through walls of thick trees. I tell him this doesn't seem safe. There's a lot of wolves out here. He laughs and tells me to stop being a wuss. We start walking about into the infamous swamp. We get about 2 minutes in. Path widens. We start hearing the sound of bottles clanking. Dude, what is that? Not sure, probably weird bug sounds or something. We keep walking for about 30 seconds. See a chunk of fog a bit up the trail. Completely clear night. We both stood there staring at it. It keeps drifting towards us, getting closer. Start to see it isn't really fog. It is actually a transparent 6-legged dog. Neither of us make a sound. Just stand there staring at it, waiting to rationalize what we're seeing. Maybe it's some weird weather phenomenon. Just keeps drifting straight towards us at an even pace. Its image just keeps becoming clearer. Without a single word, we both simultaneously turn around and begin sprinting as fast as we can back to my car. Slam the key into the ignition. We're both just chanting, "Dude, holy shit," at each other. Turn around and drive away at 70 miles per hour. I've been back about 3 times. Never seen a single thing again.
Walking Innawoods with Mum and brother. Meander further than we normally do because I'm feeling adventurous. Probably going into private land, but no signs or actual fences, so screw it. Find a bit with tall trees and ferns like I'm in Jurassic Park. Nearby bit with orderly planted fir trees or something. Mum and bro stay behind while I step over the lame wire fence and go for a look. Trees close together so it's pretty dark and I have to stoop a little, even though I'm 5'1". Cross through to the other side where it's regular woods again. See black old-school baby carriage on its side half full of the surrounding fallen leaves. Autumnal fallen leaves even though it was summer. Crouching, peering at this thing when my mum calls me back. Head under trees back to Jurassic Park where I left them. Complain that I was looking at stuff. Mum says she didn't call me, bro backs her up. The hell, continue wandering. Not sure where we are anymore. Come to a lane and a pickup comes rolling along with a woman in it. She gets out and tells us it's private land. Mum tells her that we're sorry and asks for a way back to the road. Woman keeps pointing out that it's private. Yeah, we get it. Tell us how we can leave. Woman calls her husband about these people she found on the road. Jesus Christ. Dude comes along in his own van. He also points out that it's private but tells us how to get back to the road while his lady has the Vinegar Face on. Follow his instructions on the most obtuse way back, taking way longer than he said it would, but do get back to the road in car. All agree that was strange.
At camp sort of deal. Friends and I plan to set up a camp. They have an extra tent for me. Long drive, arrive at midnight. Friend sets up camp and doesn't tell me where it is. Spend an hour just trying to find it. It rains a bit. Find out it's next to old camp cabins across a field. Because of the water in tents, they go to sleep in newer cabins. Leave me and 3 empty tents, an old cabin to the left, halfway into a forest tree line. Decide to sleep in a tent, because secretly hoping for a paranormal experience. Shit's good, small enough tent to be comfy like in the picture. Got a lantern and a good book. Phone out browsing /x/. Time is around 3:20. Hear shit out in the woods, but probably rain. Still freaked out a bit. Little bit later, I hear a distinct crunch of stick behind the tent, and something like raspy breathing. Just browsed /x/, and head full of fleshgate, goat man, Bigfoot, ghosty, and alien stories. Turn off the lamp, and grab a tiny-ass pocket knife. Probably nothing, animal or someone messing with me. Hear the creak of a screen door open, and footsteps echo on the wood floor. Just someone either going to sleep or looking for their shit. Start hearing coughing and more footsteps. Not a lot of room in that cabin, so I must be pacing around. Coughing doesn't let up, like someone was really sick. Decided to poke my head out of the tent. See the corner of the cabin between trees. No lights on. Get out of the tent. Neck hair standing straight up. Walk towards the cabin. Stick uncannily crunches mid-step. You dense fucker. You've seen movies. .jpg. Jump behind a tree. Coughing stops in an instant. No sound but rainwater dripping. Slowly turn your head around the tree. See the cabin. Hold on a tick. No screen door on the cabin. Plain wooden one. Gears turning. .wav. Still no sound from the cabin. Nope. Internally. Creep back into the tent. Put a blanket overhead and call friends as quietly as possible. Wait for evac and try not to think about how thin the tent is. They come and get me and decide to check out the cabin. Tell them it's a bad idea. They're mad because sleep and call me a wuss. I'm fine with that. Look in the back corner of the cabin. Screen-framed emergency window is open. Left that cabin and my stuff. Walked straight towards the new cabin. Never wandered alone after that. Had trouble sleeping that weekend.
Never really talked about it. I know this is cliché, but I suffer from major depression disorder and have terrible anxiety because of this shit. Been left during that time because I was young and it ruined my life, so sorry, not sorry. Me, 14 years old. Friends with Richy and Alvin. Only saw them during the summer when I lived with my grandma in nowhere, Wisconsin. One night we're all bored of playing video. Wanna go do something. Richy thinks we should go to his house and go camping in the shed that's in the woods near his house. Never been camping since I was a city friend. Sounded weird, but why not? I plan on spending the next 3 nights there. Shed is a good distance from the house. Just remember I was happy we had gotten there by the time we did. Shed wasn't really a shed, but like a tiny house they kept stuff in. Open rafter ceilings, very rustic. A bit of an odd feeling, but whatever. I smell rot, tell Richy and Alvin. We move stuff to see if it's a rat, raccoon, etc. Find nothing in or around the place, whatever then IDC. We had some wine coolers, we're all just happy since I'm only up there a few months each year. It gets dark. We all decide it's a good time to sleeping bag it up. Bolt upright. I didn't have a cell phone or watch, so IDK what time it was, but it was darker than shit. Smell rot. Freeze. Listen. Hear weird sounds outside. Richy had a gun. Was actually quite serious about not messing with it. Only for emergencies. Wake the boys up. They hear the sound but think it's an animal. Tell me to stop being a girl and sleep. Can't, my body said. Nope, told the boys we should just check and make sure. We leave and I hate myself for this every day. I should have just gone back to sleep. Richy has his gun. Alvin and I have flashlights and Alvin has a hunting knife. Nothing near the front of the cabin, but I hear things moving around the side. I have smelled dead, decomposing birds left out for a few days in the hot summer sun. This made that smell like roses. The dirt is disheveled, like someone had been digging with their hands. Keep looking. By this time we all are dead silent. This was not normal. IDK, how else to explain it when you just know that something is way beyond off? We hear something moving in the tree line, panicking as we scan it with the flashlights. We all noticed it at the same time. It looked like a guy at first, back towards us with his head down, but naked. His head wasn't down. There wasn't a head. It turned around and it just didn't have a head. I don't know how else to explain it or what else to tell you guys, and that wasn't even the worst part. Its abdomen was clawed open. It looked like it had been rotting for a while, but there was something in the place where guts should have been. The stump of the neck was festering, and the fingers looked twisted and worn too. The bone. I don't know what it was, but Richy finally dropped his balls and shot it. The thing somehow shrieked that degenerated into a garbled laugh. We ran, and I could swear I heard it in the woods near us. I could smell it. We made it back too. The house. Never said anything besides telling his parents. Heard the gunshots and us running into the house. Told them we saw some animal and we thought it was going to attack us. We left our shit in there till the morning of our last day. A couple of months pass, Grandma calls. Richy died. His parents went out of town and came back to him having blown his own brains out. Richy never had seemed that depressed, ever. It was odd that he shot himself with that specific gun. Go out for the funeral, avoid the property with ease. Grandma died the following spring. She had a brain aneurysm. At the funeral, I could smell that smell. I wasn't able to stay out there now after that without her. A year to the day, Alvin had wrote a letter, saying all he could see at night was that thing, standing in his yard, always with different heads, laughing at him. Never heard from him since. I didn't know how he got my address. I never gave it to him or his parents. He has no Facebook that I can find or anything. I still see it in my nightmares. I miss them both a lot still. They were like the brothers I never got to have. The worst nightmare I had was when the thing had Richy's face, post-gunshot wound, and it just laughs, that disgusting garbly laugh. I can't sleep a lot unless I'm medicated. I lost half my family. What did we do? We were 14. I didn't know it was out there. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm kind of freaking out remembering all of this.
Hi/X/. Back in 2011, I went to Madagascar to visit my wife's family. They live way out in this place called, I hope I spell it right, Mangataboa-Hangi. That is the middle of nowhere. Their house sits on top of this small hill. Entire land around it for miles is surrounded by mini mountains, plateaus, tiered step hills that have dirt stairs built into them. All kinds of weird things. Their fields are full of wheat and tall grass. Anyway, wife is talking to her mother. Father decides it is time to have talk with me and brings Grandpa along too. Grandpa is old and frail from all the farming he has done. He requires a cane to get around. Instead, he holds onto my arm the whole time we are outside walking around. All three standing there talking about their garden. Grandpa's talking about how his tomatoes are perfect this year. I see this guy just walking through the field, completely out of place and clad in this raggedy black clothing like he's been set on fire. His skin is like coal, and he's holding his arms straight down. He's jerking around like some Resident Evil 4 Iron Maiden monster. I ask her dad if this was normal for people to cross the field. He says no, nobody ever does, and he knows everyone in the community, but doesn't recognize Coleman. Coleman stops and turns to look at us from 200 yards away, turning his whole torso instead of just his head. Dad goes inside and comes back with a Mass 36. We leave Grandpa in his chair on the porch and go down to see if Coleman needs some discipline. Coleman is walking slowly. We get within 20 yards and call him. He turns his whole body, screams like a banshee. Dad aims at him, but he takes off, bounding through the wheat and straight up the hill.
Sounds very creepy. Maybe he really did get burned, though. There was a mysterious case near where I live where some epileptic went and had a campfire with some guy he only just met. He had a seizure, and either the other guy had already left by then or didn't help him. Maybe even push him. Police were searching for him anyways. Thing is, he landed in the fireplace, and when he came to, he was a mess. Yet he was still walking around looking for help. He rang at some family's door saying he was cold and asking for a sweater. They said he looked like an alien, completely black, fingers and hands partly burned off. They called an ambulance and he died on his way to the hospital.
Be Innawoods, deep out in the forests of North Carolina, camping with my hiker bro, let's call him Matt. Set up camp in a nice area, pretty dark by now, kind of spooky. Night falls, everything is pitch black, but the fire gets quiet, really fucking quiet. Officially spooked, but pass it off like any cliche fucker in a horror movie does. Matt has fallen asleep by now, I am still awake. Suddenly there's a huge flash of light. Look up into the sky, 3 insanely bright orange lights rotating in a triangle. Turns out Matt was an alien spy. I get beamed aboard the vessel and a whole host of horrors are performed upon me for days. Literally get all my skin surgically ripped off and replaced with reptilian scales only for those to be torn off later and replaced. Get beamed back into the woods, cold, alone, afraid, and scarred for life. I'll Mao.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.